up, guys? We're going to be doing the first oil change today on my GT350R. We're warming the car up right now because I want to get a good drain. And I'm also going to be showing you guys a completely different motor oil that was recommended to me by a lot of my NASCAR friends down in North Carolina. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about this new oil. We're going to drain it. We're going to take the factory fill out. And we're also going to send that to Blackstone Analysis just to get a little bit of a breakdown. And then at 1,000 miles with the new oil, I'm going to also repeat that test. So let's get back over to the garage right now. We're going to warm it up. It's cold out. And we're going to do the first oil change on the R. You guys know, you watch my channel, I have recommended this since day one of the AutoFanatic YouTube channel, the AMSOIL 5W50. I still think this is the premier #1 choice. However, considering that I'm not using the R on a daily basis, a lot of you guys are not driving your GT350s on a daily basis. The cars are sitting, and there's a couple of things that I want to talk about today that are going to be important to any of you guys, and the driven FR50 may be a better solution for you. I still will never ever recommend the factory motorcraft fill in the GT350R or GT350. I just feel that that motor oil just does not have the proper shear strength. It doesn't have the additives and everything else that a race motor really needs for optimal conditions. Now, a lot of you guys have seen on the internet, people are having these engines grenade and explode and all that, but you know, those are very isolated incidents. For the thousands of motors that Ford has produced, maybe 1% have had issues, and that's really not that bad considering it is a race engine that is put in a production car. It has a high compression, very high rev range, flat plane crank design, and it is just a race inspired, and it is a track design motor. Now, what do you guys do when they go to the racetrack? Whether you're running Daytona 500, you're running IMSA, any kind of class, after you run the endurance of the race, the car gets blown apart, the engine gets blown apart, fully rebuilt for the next race. Now, having a race motor in a production car, it doesn't really lend that opportunity for the average consumer to rebuild their motor after a couple of years of tracking their car. I mean, it's cost prohibitive, and it's just not something that a lot of people do. So the engine oil used from day one is critical in the longevity and the performance of any kind of high performance motor, and the 5.2 flat plane crank is no exception, including the new Predator version in the GT500s. Now, in regards to the driven motor oil, there's a couple of things I want to talk about here. They are claiming that they have the highest base stock oils with zinc, phosphorus, and sulfur added. Now, a lot of guys, you know, with the hot rods and vintage cars all noted how zinc is important for those older engines. Now, zinc is also important for any kind of modern engine, because what it does, it creates a sacrificial layer on the metal reciprocating parts inside the valve train and inside other parts of the engine that prevents scoring. When the engine components get scored, it creates corrosion. Corrosion leads to rust. And what is rust? It's a abrasive component that gets circulated through the engine, and it causes piston scoring, cylinder wall scoring, crankcase bearing scoring, and it just causes havoc on everything inside the motor. So another thing that was really interesting about this driven oil, when I was talking to the engineer, he basically said that this is the same oil that is used by winning NASCAR teams. Whereas you would think that there's a specific grade of oil that is available to retail, and then there's another grade that's available to professional motorsports. Well, not in this case of the driven brand. It's a smaller company. It was started by Joe Gibbs Racing, which is a NASCAR, Winston Cup, and Sprint Car Series team. And like I said, if this oil can hold up to the rigorous conditions of NASCAR, going 200 plus miles an hour for 500 plus miles in Daytona, I definitely think this is definitely going to be a very good option for a lot of you guys that are not driving your cars on a regular basis, and they're going to sit for prolonged periods of time. Now, here's a situation I want to talk about, regarding having these cars sit for a long period of time. So what happens is, there's two things that happen in motor oil, especially when the cars sit. You get condensation, and you also could get premature corrosion. Now, the condensation in oil is another issue that causes foaming. When there's foaming in the oil at higher RPMs, you're going to pretty much get oil starvation, and it's going to cause excess wear and tear. So you definitely don't want that. So now, the driven motor oil is pretty much using a very, very unique component to it. The same additive used by the US military for storing and protecting combat vehicles. It's called a vapor phase rust inhibitor, and it is the only oil manufacturer right now on the market that is using that additive in a consumer grade product that we could all purchase for our high performance cars. Now, the situation is a lot of oil manufacturers want to put other additives to create greater surface tension of the motor oil as the car sits. So when the car sits, your piston, whether it's say it's top dead center or not, if you have lubrication, the next time you start the car up, it's going to prevent premature wear. The situation is when you have too thick of an additive, over time the gravity is going to pull that down. It's not going to stay on the cylinder walls. It's going to cause serious degradation of the oil's ability to protect moving components in the engine. Okay? And I've actually had a couple of high performance engines that had 12.5 to 1 compression, and I had an issue with the motor oil that I was recommended by the engine builder with a foaming problem. And through the breather caps on the valve covers, I was getting this white sludge. And I'll show you guys some photos in the video right now. And if you pull out your oil cap, you see a white sludge, or if you have a vintage hot rod or a conventional old school motor, you pull out the breather cap and you're going to see this oil. It's like a white sludge. That is because there's excess condensation because the oil is breaking down and not doing its job of protecting the car while it's sitting for prolonged periods of time. And that's, I think, critical for any of this stuff if any of you guys want to have a long-lasting motor, especially a GT350 or any race car. So the situation is they're using this additive called a vapor phase rust inhibitor. And what this is actually doing is creating a microscopic film on all the metal surfaces that blocks the metal from moisture and even rust-causing oxygen. So this rust inhibitor creates a layer that won't drip off due to gravity and due to prolonged periods of time of the car sitting. And it's actually one of the best of both worlds because you don't want to go too thick, and then you don't want to put too many of the additives where it's going to, one problem is going to lead to another problem. So another problem too in a lot of these cars that are sitting is rust. And the rust is coming from condensation that builds up into the crankcase. So what happens is the gritty rust will break down on the bearing surfaces, the cylinder walls, the crank journals, and piston rings. When the engine is first fired up, the rust will get pumped through the oil pump throughout the entire engine, and this can cause havoc and premature wear. And when the engine starts to break down, you're not going to get the fuel economy, you're not going to get the performance, and you're not going to get the longevity out of the motor because the engine is not going to have that factory tight seal between the piston, the ring, the cylinder wall, and all the ancillaries in the valve train. So this is super important. So here's the situation. I never used this oil before. I actually paid a lot more money than I was with the AMSOIL. This cost me about $160. Doesn't really matter. I paid a lot of money for my car. I want to protect my investment, and I want to share this information with you guys as well. So we're going to be doing a full oil change today. We're going to be replacing the oil filter as well. Now my car is the newer style oil filter, which is the cartridge. Now if you guys have followed my channel, I had a video last year called the oil change from hell with the original spin-on type oil filter that a dealer over torqued and caused hell. I will actually link that video if you guys want to check that out as far as what I went through. I explain a couple of tips on how to solve that problem. If any of you guys have the older style oil filters, it will get you out of a jam. We also have a Blackstone oil analysis kit. So as I drain it from the oil pan, I'm going to collect some oil as it comes out. We're going to send this over to Blackstone. And I want to have some laboratory analysis on the factory fill. I absolutely don't recommend the factory fill under no circumstances whatsoever. Just to let you guys know, if you get a coupon in the mail for a free oil change at your dealer, at your Ford dealer, just don't jump at the thing and do it. If you own the car outright, you spend $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, and some of you guys with the GT500, you're spending over $120,000. Protect your investment. Don't put the crap oil in the car. Don't go for a free oil change. Usually on a high performance motor, call it excessive, but this is just what I like to do. I like to do 3 oil changes within 1,500 miles. Now within the 1,500 mile mark, I don't recommend tracking the car, autocrossing the car, really beating the crap out of the car. So within the first 500 miles, I like to just drive the car easy. Keep the RPMs below 7,000. Don't, short shift it, cruise around, just drive the car easy. After the 500 miles, I drain it, I put the better grade oil in it. Then after another 500 miles, I do it again. So I like to do 3 oil changes within 1,500 miles. Yes, it could get expensive, but just for added peace of mind, I have never ever once had an issue with any of my motors or any of my customers' motors. So let's get over to the car right now. We're going to show you. We're going to get started on the oil change. I got the car up in the air. Far safer solution. If you guys could build something like this for your garage, it's going to make it a hell of a lot easier. So we already got the oil pan under the car. Okay. Ooh, that oil's hot. That's pretty much what you want. So I'm going to put that to the side. I'm going to grab my little container here. We're going to fill this up. I'm going to wait for it to drain out a little bit more because I don't want to overspill it. Let's see, we'll go. Okay. Okay, so we got the Blackstone Lab container filled up. I'm going to put that to the side. And it's going to be messy, so don't expect to do this and not get oil all over the place, but just wear gloves. Okay, so we're going to just let that drain out for about 30 minutes. I'm going to pop it back on, and then we're going to start working from the top to get the new oil in. Okay, and this is after I just drained out the oil for about 30 minutes. Also, the oil smells really, really bad, like fuel. That's why I just don't recommend the factory fill of the Motorcraft oil in these cars. It stinks really bad. You would think that this motor oil has about 10 to 20,000 miles on it. From the smell, from the color, you know, from some of the things that I'm seeing, I could see some solvent like petroleum from gasoline. You could see like in the halos of the reflections, it's kind of like rainbowish in the oil as I look at it under the light in here. So that's pretty much where we're at. We're going to pretty much put this in some recycling containers and drop it off at recycling. And now we're going over to the fun part, getting the oil filter out, which is going to be a total mess. But on this car, it should be a lot easier, and I'm going to show you guys exactly how I'm going to do it. All right, so now to get to the oil filter, and I've showed this in prior videos with my red GT350, take the driver's side front wheel off. Just the location of the oil filter on this car is so half-assed backwards, it drives me nuts. They give you a little access panel below that is absolutely useless. All it does is just make a mess. So I already broke the lugs loose. Now, on my particular R, I have the factory, these are capped lug nuts. Now, do not use an impact gun on these. Do this by hand, because what will end up happening is the caps will get distorted and you won't get these off. I actually did a video on those. I'm actually going to look for some aftermarket one-piece nuts to replace these with very soon. So just carefully take each one off by hand. Do not use an impact run. It's actually going to be a good test also to see how light the front wheels are. Finally, to get them off. So I got the car supported with a jack stand under the front K-member, so it's not going anywhere. And I also have a jack underneath the rocker pinch weld just for some extra security. Always got to be secure when you're working on cars. So let's see how this comes off. Oh wow! Yeah, this is definitely lighter than the aluminum wheels that I've had in my other models. Wow, nice. Okay, let me show you the oil filter right now. Let me just move things around here and get this wheel and tire out of my way. You guys can see a close-up. Here is the steering rack, and here is the oil filter. Now, they have an access panel all the way back over here that has nothing to do with where this filter is located. So I'm going to pack this area with some cardboard, possibly a towel. We're going to remove, this is a canister-style filter, so we're going to remove the composite half. I'm going to use that right there. We're going to pull it out. It's going to probably make a little bit of a mess, but I'm on my epoxy garage floor, so it's not really that big of a deal to clean up. So we're going to pull that out in a couple of minutes. I'm just waiting for it to cool down. It's still a little hot in here. So we're going to come back in a little bit. We're going to get that pulled off for you. All right, guys, so we're all prepared to get the oil filter cartridge out. I got the drain pan directly under the area. I packed the entire cavity up here below the cartridge with some shop towels, just because it's going to make a mess regardless. So we're going to get in there right now. We're going to slowly loosen this up. Now, the good thing about the newer style oil filter is that it comes off a lot easier. And believe it or not, this is the same cartridge oil filter that's used in the Ford GT supercar. Believe it or not, it's for the EcoBoost motor. And they redesigned the oil pump assembly and everything. So I got a 27 millimeter socket. It's on there, 1/2-inch drive. Okay, so we got it pretty much hand loose right now. We're gonna slowly unscrew this. And it's gonna drip a little bit. There we go. Actually wasn't that bad. So this is the assembly right there. So we're just gonna be changing the cartridge, and we're gonna also be replacing the 2 red O-rings that comes in the kit from Ford. So we're gonna let that drip down. So before I put the new cartridge in, you could see the O-rings, they have some black marring on there from being in there. So the kit comes with 2 new O-rings. Just gonna use a razor blade or a box cutter just to get them out, because you don't want to have any issues with seals or anything. And then you're gonna have leaks all over your floor. So that's that, we got them off. We're just gonna pop the new ones on. The new ones are gonna go on a little bit tighter, because they're new, of course. Okay, they're gonna fit inside the grooves. The new O-rings are installed, so I'm gonna use some oil here. I'm gonna lubricate those O-rings, just like that, nice and easy, because that's gonna ensure that this thing goes on there and is torqued to spec. So just use some gloves and get it oiled up like that. So let's get the cartridge and we're gonna get this thing installed right now. Got the new O-rings. Here's the filter cartridge. You can't screw this up. You could install it either way. There's a little recess in there. Pops right in. We're gonna go over to the car now and install it. Okay, so grab your socket and we're gonna snug it up. We're not gonna kill it, but you wanna make sure it bottoms out. That's why you gotta lubricate the O-rings. Like I said, the angle of where this is sucks. Okay, so we bottomed out, and just snug it up. That's it, we're done. So you don't want to kill it, whereas if you got the single piece filter, it tells you to torque it to a certain number of foot-pounds, and that's where, if you don't lubricate the O-ring on the filter, it's going to seize up and you're going to go through hell. So let's wrap this up. We're going to get the car down on the ground and we're going to top off the crankcase right now. All right, guys, so we're pretty much wrapped up with the GT350R oil change. And like I said, I'm just going to fill up the crankcase now with the Driven FR50. Hope you guys got some more information. If you guys never heard of this company, or if you're considering a different type of oil for prolonged periods of storage, I definitely think you should look into the Driven FR50. Do your research, do your due diligence, learn a little bit about what the guys at NASCAR and Roush Yates are using, and Hendrick Motorsports. And I think this is going to be a really good alternative to the AMSOIL. Some of you guys can't get AMSOIL, but if you guys are using the AMSOIL, stick with it. The stuff is awesome, but word of advice, and I'll tell you this from day one, do not use the factory Motorcraft garbage. And stay tuned to the channel. Please subscribe for more content. And just let you guys know, the Blackstone oil analysis, I may do a video or I may not do a video, but head over to the autofanatic website in the lifestyle news section. I most likely will be doing an updated story on the analysis as far as what comes back from the factory fill under 1,000 miles, and then we're going to most likely be checking the oil again as time goes on. So I'll see you guys soon. Stay tuned to the channel for more content. Hit up the autofanatic website today, and I'll see you guys in the next video real soon.